do you think that the New South Wales government has taken the right approach in its response to the Northern Beaches cluster?
I think that all of us in New South Wales are just so grateful for the efforts of everyone, all those contact tracers that have been working assiduously over Christmas, through to the Premier, who hasn't stopped herself. And we have, I think, seen a far better response than we saw with other outbreaks in other states earlier in the year, which is why I think there's a higher degree of confidence that we can keep this under control and not see the need for, hopefully, further restrictions being placed on New South Wales residents.
Should New Year's celebrations go ahead under the circumstances?
I hope the midnight fireworks can proceed, but obviously the New South Wales government needs to follow the health advice, and we have already been told that as far as practicable, we should be staying at home and enjoying the fireworks on the television or from our windows. And I think that that's really important advice. We need to minimise movements around the city. We need to minimise the large crowds. And obviously, this is a day-by-day proposition, as we've seen from the Premier, and I'm sure that she'll have further clarity today or tomorrow on this. But if we can avoid going out, I think that's really sensible advice that we should stick to.
We've seen mass parties, mass gatherings in Sydney as well as in Byron Bay over the weekend. What is your reaction to this under the circumstances, particularly given we're in the midst of an outbreak?
It's beyond belief and reprehensible, really. It's just so disappointing to see some people acting as though they've already got the vaccine when clearly they don't. And I have to say, I think that there are some younger people in our community who think that they're immune from this when we know that they're not. And more importantly, we know that they can spread it to those that are older, those in their family, those that they love. And that's why the message has to resonate across all age groups. But I have to say, in my own area, I've just been really impressed with the way that residents have been responding. I've been seeing in supermarkets and shopping areas probably about 90% take-up of masks. And I think that's a great response, as it should be.
It's not certainly the case in other parts of Sydney, though. I don't know if you saw the vision in Parramatta, people flocking to the Boxing Day sales. Pretty much nobody wearing masks in these areas. Is it time that we maybe look at mandating masks while we are in the midst of an outbreak?
Well, I think mandating masks brings with it other problems, and what we do need to see is all Sydney-siders following the advice of our health authorities. But we don't want to make masks the battleground issue that would potentially see the type of ugly protest that we saw during the Victorian lockdown. So if we can get the community to comply, that would be a good thing. Obviously, with the caseload as it is, I don't think it's necessary for the New South Wales government to consider masks at this stage, but I think all of those options have to be kept on the table if we were to see the situation get worse. I suspect in my own area we're a bit closer to the epicentre of this outbreak, so maybe there's a heightened awareness and people are taking, unfortunately, taking risks where they don't think that they're close to the Avalon cluster. But reality is that we know from the figures that have come out just in the last 24 hours, new venues in southwestern Sydney added to the list. So there's not a part of this city that should be taking it easy and relaxing when the advice from the health department is so clear.
Let's talk about the border situation. All states and territories at the moment, bar the Northern Territory, are pretty much closed off to all or parts of New South Wales. Are you worried about the ongoing economic impacts of this?
I am. As someone who worked in the tourism industry before coming to Parliament, I just feel the devastation that so many tourism businesses must be going through at the moment. There were hundreds of thousands of New South Wales people planning on travelling, for example, to Queensland over the summer break. When you think that all of those tourism facilities would have been gearing up in terms of staff, in terms of provisions, and the Queensland domestic tourism industry can only partially make up for that. So the impact on tourism around Australia, obviously one of the worst affected sectors of the economy all year, but to have this on top of what they've already faced is a really heavy blow. And tourism is one of our nation's biggest employers. And so I would hope that the states are mindful of that when they're thinking about these things.
Yeah, I've seen pictures at Sydney Airport. It's gone back to a ghost town, which is quite disappointing after so long. Just finally, Trent, the UK strain of the virus has now reached our shores. It's been recorded in hotel quarantine travellers in both New South Wales and now South Australia. Given this, should the vaccine be fast-tracked?
No, I don't think it should be. I think that what we've seen in jurisdictions like the United States and the UK and Europe now are effectively emergency authorisations for the distribution of the vaccine. We have a very rigorous process led by the Therapeutic Goods Agency, which is regarded as one of the best regulators in the world. We're not facing the deaths and the caseloads that we're seeing in those other parts of the world, which I think would necessitate effectively cutting corners for the authorisation of the vaccine. And why is that important? It's important because when the vaccine does arrive in March, we want the Australian community to have confidence that the process has been completed in the usual way. Now, of course, the TGA has done an amazing job. Sometimes these things could take a decade to approve, but they've been able to get that approval process down to a year. But they're doing that in a way which will allow the community to have absolute confidence in the vaccine. And particularly when we know that there are those lunatic anti-vaxxers out there that will try and undermine our efforts to get the Australian population vaccinated, it is really important that all Australians can have confidence in the process was followed.